For generations, we have been told a simple story. Neanderthals were the brutish cousins of humanity, slow, primitive, and destined to disappear. But when we look closer, when we push aside the old myths and step into the ancient cold with them, a different picture begins to emerge. Imagine a world of endless winter, a continent of ice where storms cut through the sky like blades. In that world stood another kind of human, a people who survived not for decades, but for hundreds of thousands of years. They did not have metal, they did not have cities, yet they endured a landscape so unforgiving that even modern humans might not last a single season. So the question becomes impossible to ignore. If Neanderthals were as simple and primitive as we were taught, how did they outlast some of the harshest climates the Earth has ever known? How did their bodies, their minds, and their culture allow them to thrive where almost nothing else could? And perhaps the most surprising truth of all is this: they never truly vanished. A small part of them still lives inside many of us today. This is the story of the humans shaped by ice, by darkness, and by time itself. To understand the Neanderthals, we must first step into the world that shaped them. It was a world carved by ice, ruled by storms, and marked by long months where the sun barely touched the horizon. In this cold frontier of ancient Europe, survival was not a choice. It was a daily test, written into every breath, every movement, and every decision. And it was here that the bodies of the Neanderthals became masterpieces of adaptation, shaped not only by cold, but by rain, wind, darkness, and the weight of an unforgiving landscape. Their build tells the story clearly. Neanderthals were shorter than modern humans, yet far more powerful. Their chests were broad, their torsos thick, and their limbs packed with dense muscle. This was not simply a matter of strength. A compact body loses less heat. A larger chest allows deeper breathing in icy air. Their bones were sturdy, almost like living tools shaped for constant strain. When the temperature dropped below freezing and the winds blew through empty valleys, that body structure became the difference between life and death. But one feature stands out more than others. Their noses, large, wide, and supported by high bridges, creating an internal chamber that warmed and humidified the cold air with every breath. It was a natural furnace, a built-in heater designed for a climate where inhaling too quickly could burn the lungs with cold. And this adaptation was not just for freezing air. New research shows that Neanderthals also faced long seasons of rain and dampness. They did not thrive only in dry, frozen plains. They survived in wet forests, dripping caves, and coastal winds where cold mixed with moisture to create conditions far more punishing than simple snow. Their world demanded endurance far beyond physical traits. It demanded constant movement through steep terrain, dense woodlands, and icy rivers. Imagine them pushing uphill through sleet, carrying heavy tools, tracking animals across frozen mud while storms closed in behind them. Imagine nights deep in the mountains, where the only shelter was a narrow cave lit by a flickering fire. In those moments, their bodies and instincts worked together, turning adaptation into a kind of ancient intelligence. Neanderthals were not built by accident. They were shaped by one of the harshest ecosystems the Earth has ever created, and the fact that they survived there for hundreds of thousands of years shows just how remarkable their biology truly was. Their bodies were extraordinary, shaped by cold and time. But the real surprise lies deeper, inside the skull. When researchers first measured the brains of Neanderthals, they expected something small, something simple. Instead, they found a truth that challenged everything. The Neanderthal brain was not only similar in size to ours, in many cases it was larger, and in a world where every heartbeat demanded energy, a large brain was not a luxury. It was a powerful tool for survival. A brain of that size required constant fuel, which meant it had to serve a purpose beyond instinct. It had to think, plan, remember, and predict. Imagine a Neanderthal standing at the mouth of a cave, scanning a valley carved by glaciers, reading the wind, the tracks in the snow, the patterns of animals moving across frozen ground. Their world demanded complex decisions: where to hunt, when to move, how to protect the young, how to survive the next storm that might last for days. None of this could be done with brute strength alone. Their intelligence also revealed itself in the way they cooperated. Large game hunting was not a solo act. It required timing, silent communication, and a shared understanding of strategy. A group would position themselves along ridges, funneling animals into narrow paths, anticipating movement with a precision that only a sophisticated mind could achieve. Their memory of landscapes was astonishing. Valleys, rivers, seasonal migrations, hidden shelters. They carried mental maps of territories that stretched for miles, learned and passed on over generations. And intelligence was not only about hunting. It was about solving problems in a world that never offered easy answers. Which stones fractured best in the cold? How to prepare a hide so it could keep the body warm? How to ration food during a long winter? These were not random guesses. They were decisions shaped by observation, experience, and teaching. The Neanderthal mind was not primitive. It was a mind sharpened by hardship, refined by time, and capable of navigating a world where only the intelligent survived. If their bodies were shaped by ice, and their minds carved by survival, then their culture was the fire that carried them through the darkness. And it is here, in the quiet traces they left behind, that the Neanderthals surprise us the most. Because culture is not simply tools or shelters. It is memory. It is meaning. It is the story a community tells about itself. And the deeper we look, the more we discover that Neanderthal life was far richer and more complex than we ever imagined. Their tools were not crude leftovers of a primitive people. They selected stone with intention, shaping blades with precision and crafting specialized tools for cutting meat, scraping hides, and carving wood. But the breakthrough came when they began using bone. They were the first human species known to shape bone into durable tools, something that required planning, patience, and control. Each piece held the knowledge of countless generations, passed from hand to hand. Their homes were just as revealing. Some shelters were simple windbreaks of stone and wood, but others showed a deeper sense of structure. And deep inside the Bruniquel cave in France, archaeologists found something astonishing. More than 100,000 years ago, Neanderthals carried broken stalagmites into the darkness and arranged them into circular formations. To do that, they needed fire for light, teamwork to move the heavy pieces, and a shared purpose strong enough to lead them far into the depths of the earth. No one knows exactly what the structure meant, but its existence speaks loudly. It was not a place of chance. It was a place of intention. Their symbolic world did not end there. A carved giant deer bone from Germany, nearly 51,000 years old, carries patterns etched by deliberate hands, suggesting early signs of art or communication. And across Spain, hand stencils and red pigments on cave walls may be among the oldest artwork on the planet, created long before Homo sapiens arrived. Even in death, they expressed meaning. Some Neanderthal burials include pollen from flowers, a quiet gesture of farewell that hints at care, grief, and perhaps something even deeper. All of it paints a single truth. Neanderthals did not simply survive the ancient world. They built a culture within it, one filled with creativity, memory, and the beginnings of imagination. When we step away from their tools and their art, we begin to see something even more profound. The Neanderthals were not just survivors. They were caregivers, protectors, members of communities bound together by something deeper than instinct. In recent years, the discovery of a Neanderthal child with Down syndrome changed everything we thought we knew. The child lived well beyond infancy, something impossible without constant care. That means a group of Neanderthals carried that child, fed them, protected them, and kept them warm through winter after winter. In a world where every calorie mattered, where every storm could steal a life, they still chose compassion. That choice speaks of a humanity older than our own history, a kind of quiet love that rarely survives in the fossil record. Their social world likely revolved around small, tight-knit groups. They shared food, taught one another, and protected their young with fierce dedication. Nights beside the fire were not just moments of survival, but moments of connection, where stories, lessons, and memories passed from one generation to the next. They were often portrayed as solitary, but the evidence shows the opposite. They were a people who leaned on one another because the world around them allowed no other way. And yet, despite their strength, their intelligence, and their deep social bonds, the Neanderthals eventually disappeared. Around 40,000 years ago, the record grows thin, and their presence begins to fade. Many theories attempt to explain this mystery. Some imagine violent conflict with Homo sapiens, who arrived in Europe around the same time. But the truth is far more complex. Climate swings grew harsher, food became scarce, and genetic studies suggest that Homo sapiens may have had advantages in population growth and reproduction, slowly outnumbering them over generations. But they did not vanish completely. Today, many people of European and Asian descent still carry 1 to 2% of Neanderthal DNA. That means they did not simply die out, they blended into us. Their story continues inside our cells, written into the code that shapes our skin, our immune systems, and perhaps even parts of our behavior. So their disappearance is not an ending. It is a transition, a merging of worlds. The last Neanderthal did not walk into extinction alone. Instead, their legacy stepped forward through us, carried quietly into the modern world. In the end, the story of the Neanderthals is not the story we were taught. It is not a tale of failure or weakness. It is a reminder that another kind of human once walked beside us, shaped by ice, strengthened by struggle, and guided by a quiet intelligence we are only now beginning to understand. When we look at their tools, their shelters, their art, and their burials, we are not seeing the actions of a primitive species. We are seeing the early sparks of imagination, tradition, and meaning. And when we learn that they cared for their sick, protected their young, and stayed together through the darkest winters, we are reminded of something even more powerful. Humanity did not begin with us. It began long before, in the hands and hearts of people who lived in a world far harsher than our own. Their story challenges us to rethink what it means to be human, to see compassion and creativity as ancient forces that shaped our species long before modern civilization. Most surprising of all, the Neanderthals are not truly gone. A small part of them still lives within millions of us, carried silently in our DNA. Their endurance, their strength, and their resilience continue through the generations, echoing across time. So the next time you look in the mirror, remember this. You may be looking at a face shaped not only by modern history, but by a lineage forged in ice, imagination, and survival. Their story is not separate from ours. It is a chapter of who we are,